everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Thoughtful Thursday. This is your host, Mae Renfroe, and as always, I get to have great guests on. And so today, I have my guest, Lori Vober, on, and she's going to be talking to us about her story of faith, resilience, and perseverance, and about not getting uh, stuck with unplanned challenges happen in our lives, which it happens to all of us, I think, in life from time to time. My guest, Lori Vober, and her husband, Dainis, with their three adopted children, reside in Goodyear, Arizona. And she is a walking miracle and has felt God called to share her story and her journey of faith and perseverance to encourage others. And she has a book called Choices, subtitles When You Are Faced with a Challenge, What Choice Will You Make? So that sounds really neat. I know she's got a lot for us. So Lori, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you so much, May. I appreciate you having me. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm excited too for a conversation because we're talking. I was saying that I love what God does like this. He redeems and restores, and he takes things that don't look good, right? Sometimes on the outside, and turns them into something beautiful for his glory. Um, and it sounds like what you're doing in your story with your story. So if you would go ahead and kind of unpack that for us, share that with us, or just start where you would like.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again. God is in the business of redemption and keeping us as Christians. As a reminder that he is our creator first and foremost, and I've learned so much on my journey of his plan is always foremost the best plan. My journey completely changed from what I ever thought it would be. At the younger age of 29, I was working in the airline industry. My background is marketing, sales, customer support. I was living in Minnesota at the time with my husband Dainis. He was an aircraft mechanic at Northwest Airlines. I was in customer support at Northwest, and we had been trying for about 2 years to start our family biologically. Hadn't been successful yet, and I was also very active in our church as the event coordinator and wedding coordinator. And they asked if I wanted to take a change in my career and be their office manager. And I thought that would be a great opportunity to slow life down and become a mom. And I really thought we were getting pregnant because of the stress and the travel and just our lifestyle. I quickly learned after taking that job, God's plan actually was to save my life first before allowing me to become a mom. And that's where I've learned on my journey that sometimes it's not about our plans, it's completely about his plans. 3 weeks into that job at the church, I suffered a major hemorrhagic stroke. It was due to a malformation of blood vessels on the right side of my brain, birth defect I had all my life. And in God's grace and glory, He waited till that moment when I was safely, I think, at a church where there were coworkers there for that to happen. It could have happened any time in my entire life. College, when I was traveling overseas on an airplane in an office building, and He allowed that moment to be when I could get help. I quickly deteriorated. I had a massive headache that day, upset stomach, left arm felt very numb and tired, but I just didn't know the signs at age 29 of stroke. I had no idea. Um, I sat down in my office chair, and luckily I had a coworker working with me. And it was when I sat down, my left leg went numb, and that's when the warning bells went off. And I thought, oh my goodness, something's really wrong. And we called 911, called my family. I do remember my parents arriving at the church. I remember the paramedics arriving at the church. And then that was pretty much it. I had a brief conversation with both, and then lights out. They rushed me to the nearest trauma center, found the bleed, um, rushed me into an emergency brain surgery situation sometime that evening, but I was literally unconscious within an hour of calling 911. And I'm so thankful that I was where I was when I was, that we got the attention that we needed. I woke up 17 days later from a drug induced coma. They immediately put me in drug induced coma because of my brain pressures.
Oh,
And I was completely paralyzed on the left side when I woke up. So, life changes in the blink of an eye, and it can be a medical challenge like mine. It can be a car
yeah,
accident. It can be a
yeah.
death in the family. It could be anything. And we have to learn to
Mhm.
pivot. We have to learn to trust God and pivot.
Mm.
And that's what the journey's been about, is how to recover, how to not get stuck, and how to move forward. Truly.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. Be
So,
really hard to just one day and the next was like, okay, this life is different from what I knew it. I have to start, you know, start this again, learning how to do
yeah.
life and do like basic things.
I mean,
Wow.
everything had to start over. And I look back now and I think I'm so grateful for so much. I've learned to have a perspective of gratefulness in everything, because you might not be able to change your physical disability, which I've learned over time. I can only change my physical disability so much. But you have total control over your outlook. And so having an outlook and a perspective of gratefulness has changed my emotional stability, and that's what I have control over. And
Yeah.
I was in the hospital for a total of 2 months. I had a second 11-hour brain surgery to remove the malformation, so another stroke didn't happen.
Mhm.
And it was not, it's taken me years and years to regain my memory, regain a lot of that time. But there were so many moments that, looking back, of loss of control.
Mhm.
You go from being a very independent individual, whether you're a man or a woman, to no control. I mean, I couldn't go to the bathroom on
Mhm.
my own. I couldn't even sit up at the very beginning without falling over.
Mhm.
There's no sense of modesty. I mean, you sit in a chair and someone gives you a shower. I mean, your whole world changes. I'm a type A personality through and through, and a people pleaser. And I remember, and I
Mhm.
share this when I share my story within the stroke community, of how important it is to take control over the things that you can control. I remember laying in bed at night when I got to a point that I was in the rehab part of the hospital and my family could no longer stay with me. And I would have to make that conscious decision when I wanted to roll over at night and I couldn't. I didn't have the physical ability to roll over. Was I going to suffer in pain because I was uncomfortable? Or was I going to push the button for the nurse to come help me and be vulnerable enough to do that and maybe disturb her, even though that was her job to help me? And, I've just looked back and I think, where I was and where I am now is it's just been a journey. I said to my husband recently, just from sharing my journey so much, of how much I've learned about myself. And I asked him, did he remember when I was in the rehab center, how much I loved an ice machine and how much I loved going to this ice machine and getting ice water? And he said, I do remember we went there a lot, but I just thought you liked the exercise and like, going and getting out of your room.
Yeah.
And I think now it was the one thing I had control over. I didn't have control over my schedule or my body or
Yeah. Yeah.
anything. I could push that button and get ice anytime I wanted. And that was like, you know, unconsciously, the one thing I found I had control over. And so, whatever journey we're on, we have to just force ourselves to make that choice not to get
Mhm.
stuck, to persevere forward. And I always say, we might not have control over the challenges that have happened to us, but we always have a choice in our reaction to our circumstances. And that's why I've become so passionate about sharing my journey and doing something on purpose with my challenges, because it gives purpose to what's happened. It makes me feel like
Mhm.
I'm doing something, rather than just being a victim to something that I couldn't
Mhm.
control. Instead, I'm really surviving and thriving within a plan that God's given me the ability to do.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. Because we have to remember that he knew all of this that was coming, right?
He did. He
Yeah.
did. And he does. I mean, this is part of his
Mhm.
ultimate plan. Now, the key is he always gives us a choice. He doesn't make us do any of this. I mean, if I chose to get stuck and sit and eat ice cream and brownies and watch binge Netflix all day long, which is very enticing sometimes, especially when I get tired. Um, he wouldn't stop me necessarily. He might prompt me, but he's
Mhm.
not. He might put people in my life to encourage me, but there's not he's not necessarily going to stop me, but I think he does prompt us to be obedient in his plan, and he gives us opportunities to follow his plan, but he doesn't force us, just like he doesn't
Mhm.
force us
Yeah.
to follow a
Yeah.
faith journey. He
Yeah.
puts people in
Yeah.
our lives just the same. It's
Yeah.
all
Yeah. For
choice.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
yeah.
So how soon after then did you write your book choices? And then where? I mean, I think you're a mom now.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so
when
it
did?
was a process. So, they 6 months post-stroke, we were in Minnesota. My husband actually lost his job. It was right after September 11th, where the aviation industry just tanked, and so he lost his job, and we ended up in Arizona. So that's why we're in Arizona now. My therapy just took off once we got to Arizona. I found an amazing neuro rehab called Swan Rehab, and I really dedicated all my time. It became my full-time job. So for
Mhm.
basically 8 years, I worked 8 hours a day, pretty much on therapy. And I thought at that point, because I was so young and really didn't have any friends when we came to Arizona, that my best avenue to get new friends, blend in with my peers and get my life back was physically to recover to my best ability. And so that was part of my energizing bunny attitude towards physical
Mhm.
therapy, was just by that aspect. And I really, really wanted to be a mom. I mean, when the day the
Mhm.
stroke happened, I was planning motherhood. I mean, and I was the type of mom who who I had planned in her head, how was I going to tell my husband when I was pregnant? What was the nursery going to look like?
Mhm.
We had the minivan already. We had the house. We had the fenced in backyard. We had the puppy that we were training, because everybody says before you have kids, you have a puppy and you train the puppy before you have the kids. I mean, we already were doing everything for a child. And then the stroke
Yeah.
happened. And rather than a
Mhm.
child, we were trying to hold it together, hold our marriage together,
Yeah.
start a new career, and get our life back together. And so in 2011, which was right at 8 years post stroke, we decided adoption was the route we wanted to go to start our family. And at that point, I had developed epilepsy from the stroke. I developed epilepsy when we moved to Arizona. And so we just felt between my disability and epilepsy, that was really the safest avenue. And we really had a heart for giving a lifetime forever family to children that might never have that opportunity. At that point,
Mhm.
um, my husband and I had contributed financially and emotionally to Compassion International since we had gotten married. So we had the ability, we felt, kind of to parent emotionally several children through Compassion International
Yeah.
Ministries. And so that's why we chose adoption. And we wanted to do Latin America because of where we lived in Arizona, and we felt like the Hispanic community was more prevalent. And Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru were on the top of our list. And Peru and Ecuador actually said no because of my disability and my medical journey. And so we pinpointed Colombia, and we wanted siblings because my husband and I are both only children, and we wanted a bigger family, so we chose siblings. And we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. And God put 3 kids into our lives. We went to Colombia in April of 2011, brought 3 kids home.
Mhm.
We were there for longer than we anticipated. We actually were there for 4 months. Brought our kids home. It was we have a son and two daughters, and many
Oh,
times I think God doesn't give us the full picture of anything that we say yes to, because if He did, then we would never say yes. And
yeah,
we
yeah,
often look at our kids and we were like, "This is what siblings are. You fight." We had no idea that this is what siblings were,
yeah.
and we had no idea really what adoption parenting, the full spectrum of parenting and
Mhm,
adoption parenting was, and to add, my medical challenges and disability onto that, it was a journey truly of challenges and blessings, but, I say now, our kids gave us not only the opportunity to be parents, but they gave us the
mhm,
opportunity through their own trauma and what they were going through,
mhm,
for me to not only sympathize, but truly empathize with those
mhm.
individuals God puts in my life now as an author and a speaker. So, every single thing we say yes to is part of His bigger plan. We just don't always recognize
Mhm.
it when we're in the thick of that
Yeah,
tough journey.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can relate to
So,
that. And yeah, I'm
so,
sorry. I was just
and
gonna ask how old your children were.
yes, so my children were 6, 8, and 10 when we adopted, and they are now 20, 22, and 24. They're all out of the
Oh,
house. They're all doing their own thing
okay.
now. I have 4 grandchildren. So, my 2 girls, have, kids. So, they all have significant others and, have kids of their
Yeah,
own.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and I always tell them that, they have given their children the best gift that I can never give them
Mhm,
as a
mhm,
mom,
mhm,
and that is, eternal love, from the moment that they conceived those children. That as much as I love them, at the young ages of 6, 8, and 10, I cannot love them, from the time that they were conceived, and they have given that amazing gift to their children that I, as much as I love them and support them, couldn't give them. And so,
mhm,
to answer your question, it was when my kids were in high school right at the pandemic time of 2021 that I started writing, and God really just said, "You know what? It is time to start sharing your journey of medical challenges, your journey of adoption, your journey of tough parenting." And I thought I would write a book on stroke and the equipment I'd used and the challenges and what I learned.
mhm,
And
mhm.
choices appeared. In fact, my husband would walk through at night and say, "What are you doing?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm writing my book." And he's like, "You're doing what?" I said, "Oh, God told me to write a book, so I'm writing a book." And he just kind of chuckled and said, "Oh, okay." And every night it was the same thing. "What are you doing?" And I say, "Oh, I'm writing a book." And, about 6 months, it was finished, and, that's how choices appeared, and
Yeah,
it took on, a whole, um, uh, personality of its own, because I really felt as I was writing, and I had never attended a writing conference. I didn't do anything they said
mhm,
now that I've attended writing conferences that they say I'm
mhm.
supposed to do, as far as map out your chapters and be
Yeah,
organized and do this and that. I didn't do anything. I just wrote. And really, the theme of it is choices, because it's all about the fact that we all go through challenges, and we all have a choice of what we're going to do in those challenging situations. And it is a lot of my story, but it's also reflection questions at the end of each chapter for that
mhm,
reader to really evaluate their
mhm,
story.
mhm,
Um, and so that's
mhm.
how that came about. And then I started speaking in conjunction with writing.
Oh, wow, cool. How long have you been speaking?
And right about the same time. So the book published
Oh,
in
well,
2022, and I
yeah.
started sharing
Oh,
at
wow.
the same
Yeah,
time. I say it's kind of a blurred line. There's not really,
yeah,
it all came together at the same time. And I speak some in churches, some in
mhm,
retreat, but a lot in my stroke community, and just let him know that the struggle will always be a struggle. There's always going to be
yeah,
challenges. Brain injury and stroke recovery is lifelong, but it's not always going to be as hard as it is at the beginning. And hope, joy, and success in your new normal is possible. Again, it goes back to choice.
mhm. Yeah. Wow. So what is like something give your main message like in your book that you really want your readers to grasp?
Yes, yes. There's so many, and there's so many that I didn't put in this first book that I will be putting in the second book as I'm
Okay.
continuing to write. Um, I think a lot of it has to do with what I've learned as far as the importance of resilience and perseverance
Yeah.
and one step at a time, and understanding God's bigger picture. And that when you're in the thick of the journey, you might not understand, but your faith and your eyes on him in that journey is so important because we don't always understand when we're in the thick of our pain and when we're in the
Mhm.
thick of not understanding. But as time goes
Mhm.
on, if we can maintain our dependence and our trust in our faith journey, he will reveal it to us. And I've come to understand and really believe that every challenge can be an opportunity and a purpose in what we go through with the right perspective. And, resilience and perseverance go hand in hand. But again, it goes back to that choice. But I've continued to learn and grow in the importance of emotional support. And I didn't understand that for a very long time. Like I said a little while ago, I really concentrated for years and years on the physical and getting back to um, where I physically could be independent in order to fit my peer group. And by doing that, I
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
neglected the emotions. And I've learned a lot about grieving the losses that the stroke took away from me. And I talk a lot to my stroke community and others that go through medical challenges and let them know that grieving the loss of a medical challenge is very similar to grieving the loss of a loved one. And I've gone through grief share now at our church,
Okay.
and not only grieving that loss, but just that healthy support and healthy reflection so that you can move on to your new normal.
Mhm. Yes, there definitely would be that grieving
Yes,
of what could have been.
absolutely. We
Yeah.
all we all lose something, it goes back to that we all have plans, expectations, goals, dreams, and anytime
Mhm.
any unexpected challenge happens, no matter what it is, um, there's a loss. And if we don't take time to healthily grieve that, and we just stuff
Mhm.
it, we can only stuff things so long before it's going to come out, and it can come out in very unhealthy ways um, if we haven't uh, taken the time to reflect on it correctly.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Wow. So, I, what is some maybe some tips and wisdom you got for balancing all that? I know you shared already balancing these challenges, your medical challenges, and then your adopted children, and just as a couple. Do you got things you
Mhm.
can kind of share with us with that?
Yes, I've learned a lot about vulnerability. Um, and so one of the things I would say is be vulnerable. You can't control others' emotions and others' feelings towards you. We all like to be liked. I mean, whether you're a 2 to 4 year old going into preschool, whether you're
Mhm.
in junior high or you're a middle-aged woman like myself, we
Mhm.
all have that desire to be wanted, to be loved, to be supported, to be
Mhm.
understood, to fit in, to be asked on a dinner date, to be asked to go to a conference. I mean, we all have that same innate desire to be liked. But we can't control what other people's reactions are to us, and whether
Mhm.
they're going to like us or not. We just can't. And I spent so much time hiding behind my disability and my epilepsy and what was truly going on, so that I could have friends, so I could be liked. And I learned, that that was just hurting me because I was really suffering in silence, and the vulnerability of not complaining, but just sharing that this is what I'm going through. This is what I might need help with. Gives me a connection
Mhm,
point with people. It
mhm,
gives me
mhm,
this different support system, and it might bless others who are feeling the same way. It might give me the chance to friend someone that might be feeling that same way and be afraid, just like I was, to speak up. And you just never know how God's going to use that
mhm,
vulnerability in someone else's life. And so I've just learned that it's not a
mhm.
matter of weakness. It's not a matter of complaint if you're doing it in a positive manner. It's just a matter of sharing. It's a matter of just being real with others and just not worrying about how they're going to feel and how they're going to react. And if they can't handle what you're going through that you can't even control, then maybe they're not the right friend for you anyway. Maybe you're
Yeah, that
barking up
makes
the
sense.
wrong tree.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, if you can't really, like, be honest with this is what you're going through, and if they really can't take that, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've just learned a lot, and I think social media doesn't help it. I mean, social media, there's positives of social media of sharing, but man, whether it again, it goes back to whether you're, elementary, junior high, high school, or middle age. There's a lot of peer pressure with social media, and
Mhm,
you have to put appropriate boundaries around that, and around not only physical boundaries, but I think mental boundaries, and stay healthy around it.
mm, mhm. Oh, for sure, yeah. Oh, that's good. And as to ask you about Bible verses, do you got favorite Bible verses that
I
spoke to you
do, I do. I have a
at this
lot of
time
favorite Bible
that you've
verses.
stood on?
The one I used in choices was Jeremiah 29:11 through 13. And, I know that's super popular and a lot of people use it, for all sorts of things. But the
Mhm,
one part of it that I love is actually verse 13 out of the whole thing, because a lot of people just use Jeremiah 11 and 12, for I know the plans I have
yeah,
for you, but
yeah,
they don't go all the way to 13 that says, "You will
yeah,
seek me and find me when you seek me with your whole heart." And that's the key.
yeah,
You'll find
yeah,
him when you seek him with your whole heart. Um, One of my favorites is 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18. And this is where the gratitude came in and where I've really learned to change the way I think about things. And it says, "Rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." And again, it goes back to what's your perspective? How are you looking at things? Is your glass half full or is it half empty?
yeah. Oh, wow, that really makes a difference the way your outlook. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
it really
Yeah.
changes everything, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we can find things to be thankful for and praise the Lord for right in the middle of some of our worst things that we can go through if we would just look. And when we do, then that really, it really lifts us up. There's a reason he said to give thanks in all things, right? Because
Absolutely.
he knew,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And you
it
you
was for our
can't.
good.
I've also learned, a lot of times people will look at me as you and I are speaking, and they really don't see, because God has given me, thankfully, from where the stroke happened, the ability to still speak fairly clearly, and not have a lot of aphasia. And through the years, really, my cognitive has come back, and I've really been blessed in those areas. But if you saw me in person, you would see my left side upper extremity. It's an active cyst to the right. I do everything right-handed. I type right-handed. My 10th book is, I do compilations a lot. So my
Yeah,
10th compilation is coming out, and everything is right-handed. Um,
yeah,
and so I walk still with a limp. But um, we, most people that even my good friends, they don't understand and don't really know, in the general public, don't realize what a life is like with someone with a physical disability. And I say, from the moment most of us, um, wake up that are in a position like mine to the day night we go to sleep, we have to be hypersensitive to everything around us, where we're walking. Is
Mhm,
there a
mhm,
crack? Is there a hill of any kind? Is there a slant of any kind? Is someone going to stop if I'm walking across the parking lot? I mean, we just have to be hypersensitive to anything and everything as we try to become more independent in the lifestyle that we choose. And so, if I could just say, to those that, that are listening, that, you know, kindness is a free gift. And so to put your phone down and be aware of those around you, those that take the time to say, hey, can I help you? Can I open the door for you? Or just smiling at a perfect stranger that might be having a bad day, that
mhm,
goes a
mhm.
long, long way. And I don't think many
Um,
people even realize the power of kindness and
mhm,
how
mhm.
that really affects some of us that struggle. And I'm one of the blessed ones that even though I had a pretty massive stroke, God truly spared me
Mhm.
by giving me the ability to thrive as much as He has.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Yeah, 'cause, that's a miracle. And that's
Absolutely.
probably not what you're capable and you're doing may not be the situation and just like all the stories out there, right? That have
Right,
experienced
right,
the same.
right, right, absolutely, absolutely. So, yes, but it's always a journey, right? And, it can be anything. It can be any challenge that we go through, that
Mhm,
throws us for a loop. Mine happens to be stroke and epilepsy and adoptive kids, but,
mhm,
we all have, as one of my really good speaker friends, Michelle Riddell always says, she talks a lot about limps, and, we all have limps. We all have some of us have, limbs that you can't see. And as I've shared more and more with my stroke community, and I absolutely love sharing in my stroke community because I always tell them, "You're my peeps. You're the one that gets me." And um, you know, I I have become so grateful actually that I have a physical disability because there's nothing hidden when you see me. You see what you know
yeah.
there's no surprise, but it's those that suffer in silence, those with the mental limps, those that have
Yeah.
cognitive difficulties where everything
Mhm.
appears fine on the outside, but they are struggling so deeply
Mm.
on the inside that my heart just breaks for. And so I think as a society, we need and desperately need to be more aware of each other and reflect more on each other and help each other because we all have something. And
Mhm.
we may not be willing to admit it, but we do. And we need
Yeah.
to take this
Yeah.
moment to just stand back and watch. I'm a big people watcher. If I go to anywhere where there's people, I'm the quiet one usually that sits back and watches. And you learn so much just by watching others.
Yeah. Oh, that's neat. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, and we need to have that big in community and support each other because this life is a hard journey.
it is.
I bet it's a hard journey, and we need that support. And understanding, compassion from each other, and prayers, each other's prayers. I think we're
I love that
instructed to
you
pray
said
for
that.
one
Yes,
another, and yeah,
yes, yes. Community
yeah,
is so important, isn't it?
yes, yes, absolutely. I would
Yes.
agree. And I you mentioned Michelle Riddell. I had her on the podcast earlier
Oh,
too,
did you?
all
Wonderful. I
back
didn't
in
see
yeah,
her episode. So yes, I haven't seen her
yeah.
episode. So I'll have to go back and
Okay.
watch it. So, yeah, she's a
Yeah,
dear friend. In
yeah.
fact, I just flew in from Texas last night, and so
Oh,
I just got to see her this weekend.
okay.
So
Okay,
yes,
cool.
yes.
You'll have to tell her you was on my podcast.
Yeah, I definitely
Um,
will.
yeah, yeah. So, maybe just kind of like one last question. I'm like you really see the brighter side of things and feel like good. It seems like about your story, even though you wouldn't probably, maybe you would wish it hadn't happened, but it did. So, how could you help someone else to see that and not be mad at God, not be like, why didn't you prevent this? Like,
Yeah.
Can you kind of
I
give us, like,
did.
what would you say to someone?
I appreciate that. Yeah, I did go through a period of not necessarily anger, but looking back a lot of why this, why that, why didn't this
Mhm,
happen? And especially with family and with not being able to have biological children. That was a hard one for me. And you can't change the past. You can spend the rest of your life asking why and
mhm,
wishing something would change, but
mhm,
you can't physically manifest the past to change. And so the only thing you can do is change your future by your actions, by your attitude, by your emotions, by your goals, by your expectations. I always tell people when I'm going to do things, my family would much prefer I stay home. They would if they could bubble wrap me. I'm an only child. If my parents could bubble wrap me and keep me safe, they would be so happy, but that is not who God has called me to be or do. And
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
extremely passionate about encouraging others that are in the same exact position as I am, that are holding on for dear life for any ounce of hope. And so I
mhm,
just want to encourage anybody that's been in my position or is in my position now that there is. Um, we might not be able to control um, anything that our body can or can't do, but hope is the one thing that we can control, and that all starts with the faith in Jesus Christ, because He
mhm,
is,
mhm,
whether you believe in God or not, He created us. I mean, and He has the ultimate plan. And whether you understand it or not, I don't even understand all this, but I see now He put me in a position of marketing way back when so that I could do all the things I'm doing now, not for money, but to help others.
yeah,
And, it goes back to always just believing in Him and having a constant faith and not looking back and questioning why.
mhm. Amen. That's where it's all at, right? That's one very well said.
No answers and
Yeah.
why.
Yeah. Yeah, we just have to trust the one who knows, trust the one who's holding us and sees us and all that we go through and hears us and loves us. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to take up too much time, but if I could just add this one last thing. I've always had this picture. I was asked to speak at a retreat and last September, and
Okay.
my title was His Light is Always On. And I always have a picture that of a cottage in the woods with a fire always going, and Jesus is always out in the snow waiting, and he knows,
Yeah.
God always knows what our day was like, but He's always waiting for us to go to Him and bring us in. And for me, the hot mocha is always on the stove, and the fireplace is always going, and the light is always on, and that's all He wants. He just wants us to come to Him and tell Him
Hmm.
everything that's in our heart that He already knows.
Hmm. Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
that's
thank you
nice.
again. Yes, yes. I just want others just to never lose hope.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. It's my always my message is to keep holding on to that hope. Yeah. So where can my audience connect with you and find your book choices?
Yes. So they can, best place is my website, which is www.lorivober.com. And there you'll find choices. My first book. You'll find all my compilations. I've written and published 10 with various publishers now. And I'm working on a second book, which will be more on the emotional recovery side of a brain injury and a stroke recovery. And I'm also
Mhm.
working with another author on a children's book series on how children can accept others that aren't like themselves.
Oh wow, that's neat. That's pretty needed. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'll have the links in the description here too. I can put the links where they can find you. All right. Sounds good. Thank you again so much, Lori, for joining me today and for sharing that. And I know many will be blessed by your story. So continue your great work. God bless.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
all right.